I am so proud of my guest today. Of course, years ago, I met Walter and Connie Payton when Walter Payton came to the Chicago Bears. His son, Jarrett Payton, is doing such a wonderful job making a name for himself in the broadcast world. It is my pleasure to say good morning and hello to my buddy, Jarrett Payton. Jarrett, how are you doing?
Kenny Mack, what's going on, man? It's a pleasure. Thank you so much, man. You've been nothing but just an inspiration and a great mentor to me throughout this process of my journey into the broadcast world. And you also showed me how to be so fresh when I go on TV. So I got to say thank you for that, sir.
Well, I tell you what, we had a lot of fun when you had your sports page show on local Chicago COTV. I learned a lot from you because you know so much about the broadcasting world. This is not a show about the Chicago Bears, but let's face it, your dad, the greatest player ever to play in the NFL, which means the Chicago Bears. After the press conference the Bears had on Wednesday, they don't need a new coach. They don't need a new general manager. They need a PR crisis team because that was a disaster, Jared, on Wednesday.
Yeah, it was, Kenny. It's really tough. A lot of Bears fans are trying to figure this thing out right now, and they didn't get the answers that they were hoping for. And I think they were hoping for news that they were going to clean house and get rid of everybody. But as I sit back and I think about this organization is so dear to my heart, man. It's everything. I have to cover this team, but I'm also a huge fan, and so to be able to see this organization go back to back 8 and 8 years, it's just not good enough. And
Mm-hmm.
we did hear that a little bit from Mr. McCaskey. He talked about that, and Ted Phillips talked about that, and Nagy and Pace. But I don't know, as a fan, when you're in it and your owner and you're behind those closed doors, I know you get it because you get the emails. But these fans, man, they deserve better. And it's tough because it goes
Mm-hmm.
back into a point where every single decision that you make, Kenny,
Mm-hmm.
there's gonna be consequences, right?
Right, right.
You go back to probably Ryan Pace's biggest decision, and I think the decision that a lot of Bears fans will never ever forgive him for, or they won't forget, and that was the selection of Mitchell Trubisky. And it's
Right.
still puzzling. It's puzzling to me because I don't get it. Listen, I love Mitchell Trubisky. I think he's a great young man, and I've got a chance to know him a little bit his time in Chicago. But my thing is when you look back on all the reporting that we've seen, Kenny, they didn't
Mm-hmm.
do their due diligence. They didn't go and they
Right.
didn't go and try to figure out, sit down with all three quarterbacks that they could have possibly selected, put them up on the big board and say, break down this play, this play. I want to know this. What will you do here? And really do it. Because if that
Mm-hmm.
was the case, I don't think Mitchell Trubisky would have been selected. So
And
that
I
just
think that's
goes,
a yeah, and you know
yeah,
what? I agree with you. And I think that's a fireable offense, just not doing your due diligence. Just
yeah.
my
I think,
opinion.
yeah, I get what you're saying, and I think it's hard because he hitched his wagon to Trubisky and hoping that they were going to figure a way out to be able to get the best out of him. Listen, when they made the selection, I was at House Hall.
Mm-hmm.
Kenny, I will never forget. I didn't even know how to say his last name because I didn't know too much about him. I did see him play against my Miami Hurricanes in Miami. We had, a celebration of my 2001 national championship team, and that was the same game that they were playing UNC, and they beat Miami that day. But I watched him, but I didn't get the feel because I was like, all right, I know who this kid is a little bit now. But after the selection that night, I went home from Hallis Hall, and there was an old website that you can bring up all the game film from college players. And I remember going up and looking at the film, and I sat and watched every single snap he played his last year at North Carolina. And when I hit the last button of the last play, I sat there and I said, I see what they see in him.
Mm-hmm.
Could this
But he wasn't
be,
ready.
hold up, could this be Ryan Pace trying to create what he created in what he saw created in New Orleans that he was trying to create here in Chicago. Could this guy who was completing 70% of his passes in college, could he be Drew Brees? Could he be that guy moving out of the pocket, making the throws? But what I saw also was the same guy that we saw in a Bears uniform for those years. A guy that is very inconsistent, has flashes at times, will amaze you with his footwork of being able to get outside the pocket, but also makes throws that you go, why? Where is that coming from? Why are you making that throw? And who you are in college, 9 times out of 10, Kenny, who you are in college or who you're going to be in the NFL. I mean, it just
no question about it.
It's hard. And so I'm not putting all the blame on Mitchell Trubisky because I think he tried his hardest. He tried his hardest to be able to figure it out. But I also don't think that he was handled the right way early on. And that's not all on Nagy. That's on the other regime that was in there before. And then Nagy gets some of that blame as well because of what we saw at the end of the 2020 season against some bad defenses. We saw what I've been saying they should have been doing the whole time of taking advantage of his feet, moving him outside the pocket.
Right.
If you're gonna run RPOs, then you got to have a threat of running the ball. If that's what he's good at, you got to figure out how to be able to do that. Now, there's probably a lot of stuff that you and I don't know that was going on behind closed doors. And we've seen his time in a Bears uniform, shoulder injuries. Is that was that a question? Was that something they knew about? They didn't want to run him enough because they didn't want to get him hurt. I don't know what it is, but they didn't handle it right. And it's the reason why I don't really think we saw Mitchell Trubisky grow into the quarterback that Ryan Pace was hoping for. But that's going to be on his shoulders, man. And now the Bears are in a situation, Kenny, where what are they going to do now? They got Nick Foles on the roster. They're going to be drafted in the 20s somewhere, right? 20 around that range. You're not going to be able to get that quarterback. So basically, they're running it back in 2021, and now they got to figure out the most precious position in all of sports, which is the quarterback position. And Ted Phillips said it during the press conference. They haven't figured out a way to be able to get that position right. And so I think the question is, do you trust Ryan Pace to figure it out? And to me, the only way they're going to figure out is going out to get one of these free agent quarterbacks and doing the same thing that they did, bringing in, Mike Glennon and Nick Foles, which we've seen right now, it hasn't worked out.
Well, let's forget about the Chicago Bears. We talked enough about the Bears. I know they're near and dear to your heart, especially with your dad. Hey, but your father was the greatest player ever to play in the National Football League. No one will debate that. But was it hard and difficult for Jarrett Payton to make his own name? You've done such a great job. I know you have a national football show coming up with NetStar. Was it hard to get your name being Jarrett Payton and not Jarrett Payton, the son of Walter Payton?
It's always been a battle. I mean, it's never been easy. But, my dad always told me something growing up. He always would tell me, don't be like me, be better than me. And I didn't understand what he was talking about. I thought he was talking about sports, but as I got older, I started to understand he was talking more about just being a better person and, treating people with respect and being kind to people. And that's what I strive to do. And so all my life, I've always had this comparison to my dad. And I thought it was pressure off the field. I mean, on the field, but off the field, I think I feel more pressure because I know what kind of person he was. And I strive to be like that to people. And so, I don't want to let people down. And I know there's a lot of people that are counting on me and people that have watched me grow up, especially in the city of Chicago, that have watched me grow up. And they feel like I'm like their son, because they knew when I was born. Like I was talking to Matt Suey, and Matt was just talking about on my birthday, December 26th, he was like, man, when you were born, it was a big deal, man, here in Chicago. Like Walter Payton had his first son and first kid. And it was like, and I think about that all the time. And so it's always been a struggle. Yeah, it's been a struggle to figure out how to, be my own person. But it's trial and error. You're never going to be
Mm-hmm.
perfect. You're never going to be like your dad. And so now, as a father myself, that's probably the biggest thing, that the conversations that I'm having with my son, who's 8. Like, I tell him all the time, he understands who Grandpa was. Everywhere we go,
Mm-hmm.
people are like, "Man, your grandpa's the best." And my son is like my dad. He's a perfectionist. He wants to be the best at everything, and he strives. And I
Mm-hmm.
keep telling him, like, "Yo, just be you. Like, you is
Mm-hmm.
good enough." And so I've came to that a realization that if I'm me, I'll be
Mm-hmm.
okay. I just got to be me. And so, yeah, it's always been a struggle, because you remember I was playing soccer when I was little, and my mom and I had a
Right.
conversation. She said, "Jarrett, I remember that one time you were running down the soccer field and these parents were yelling at you, and you got down to the end line and they were like, 'You'll never be like your dad.'" And I was like, wait, I stopped and gave the dude the ball. And I was like, "What do you mean, man? I'm not even playing the same sport as him." But, people are always going to say what they want to say. I'm just going to do
Mm-hmm.
me. And I've
Right.
seen that doing me has really worked out.
Hey, give me one favorite story about you and your dad. I know what mine is. What's your one favorite story about your dad?
Man, there's, oh man, there's so many. Like, you want a story, him and I, or just something that maybe someone told me?
What you something you remember? Him and
Um,
you.
him and I think probably one of the greatest stories is, I think I was 13 years old. I was in my room. I was just hanging out, and man, he comes to my room and tells me we're leaving and we're going. He had a backpack for me. He's like, "We're leaving. We're going out of town." So I was going with him, and I traveled with him, you know, quite a bit growing up. As I got older too, it was just easy because I see it now as a dad. My son's 8. It's easy to be like, "Let's go." He travels well, kind of like I did, and we'd always
Mm-hmm.
go cool places. So I had my Discman and I was listening to my music. I wasn't paying attention. We got on, sat first class. I didn't even look at where we were going. I had no clue. And we fly to Washington D.C. And once we get to D.C., black car comes picks us up. We get our bags, and we start driving. About 25 minutes later, we show up at the White House, and about 20 minutes after that, I'm in the Oval Office,
Ooh.
and H.W. Bush comes out into the room in the Oval Office as we're sitting there, and he's like, "Walter," and I was like, "Holy cow, that's the president!" And he was
Yeah.
like, "You're Jarrett, aren't you?" He's like, "Let me show you around my house." So he showed me around the White House, and he told me I could have anything I wanted to eat for lunch, whatever I wanted. And he said, I told him I wanted hot dogs and pancakes. And he had the chefs make it up for me. And we ended up, seeing, he took us outside to see some of the renovations they were doing to the White House. And there's people outside waiting for the president, taking pictures like they always are. And about an hour later, um, I hear a helicopter, and it's Marine One, and it lands, where it typically lands. And we walked out and we got on Marine One and we flew to a golf course. And my dad, him, and a couple of the president's friends who were big fans of my dad, they all played golf.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Kenny, it
Wow.
starts raining. Listen, it starts raining, but they're still playing. We got all this Secret Service, and I'm driving the golf cart, man. I'm just like having fun. Man, the president hits a ball on this, like the side of this elevated green, and he jumps in my cart and he says, "Take me to my ball, young man." So I'm driving and I go up on the side of this elevated green, and the cart starts slipping, and
Oh.
Secret Service came and grabbed it. They were like right there. They grabbed it and brought it down, and my dad laughed. He didn't laugh. He was upset. And he was like, "You ain't, what are you doing? Get out of there. You're not driving anymore. You could have hurt the president." And the president looks at my dad. He's like, "Waller, come on, man, let him drive." So I was torn between the president of the United States, the leader of the free world, and my pops telling me what to do. What do I do? Lo and behold,
Mm-hmm.
I kept driving the cart. And after that, we left from there and we flew to Camp David, and we spent the night at
Mm-hmm.
Camp David and had breakfast with the president in the morning. And man, it's one of those moments, man. I have a plaque on my wall downstairs in my man cave, and it just It has a signature from the president talking about me flying on Marine One, and just knowing that my dad wanted me to have that experience. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's a once in a lifetime experience, and I got a chance to be able to have it. But my dad also wanted me to be around people of that stature, and to know how to act and how to carry yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why I think I was very blessed to be able to have those different situations and different moments to be able to help in the growth who I am right now.
The one Walter Payton, Jarrett Payton story that I love is when he took you shopping for toys.
Yeah,
Told you to
man.
grab anything you wanted.
Yeah, he
You
did. He
thought
told
you
me.
had them. You gave them
Yeah,
away.
yeah, he gave them away, and it's that's who my dad was. And I think that story I always tell all the time, and I should have probably told that one, but people don't get a chance to hear the president of the United States story. So, but yeah, he took me to Toys R Us. He told me I could get whatever I want, and he got a message from a Bears fan who lost his job and wasn't able to provide Christmas for his family. And so all those toys that I thought were going back to my house were actually going to this family. And it was that moment when I figured out what my passion was. It was giving back in
Right.
service. It was doing
And I
stuff for
tell you,
other people.
and I tell you another thing that your dad was. He was so great, and he loved his kids so much. Now it's an everyday thing every year to have the son introduce the football player at the Hall of Fame. You were the very first one to do it because that's what your dad wanted, and that stands out to me. Also, he wanted his son to present him to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
That was
it was a
beautiful.
legacy. It was a legacy thing too. It was a legacy thing. I think it was a history thing for him. As a kid, being that old, you don't think about it. You don't think about what your legacy is going to be, or what your place in history is going to be. But Kenny, to be able to say I was the first son to ever induct his father into the Hall of Fame, to know that no one ever can take that away from me, and how special that was. And my dad had a lot of special moments in his life of playing the game of football, but he was
Mm-hmm.
very. I think he was very focused on getting to the Hall of Fame and what that meant. I don't think a lot of football players, I don't think that's in their mindset when they come in. I
Right.
don't think it was his when he came in, but as he started to progress and do the things that he did, he knew that he wanted what his place was going to be in the game. And so that
Mm-hmm.
moment was probably one of the most special moments for him, and for him to want me to be involved in that, man, I can't tell you what that means to me. And knowing now what it meant to him, man, it was to be able to do that was truly special.
Jared, you played in the NFL. You played with Tennessee. You were the most valuable player in the Orange Bowl. We know you can play football, but why broadcasting? You do such a wonderful job. Why did you decide, hey, I'm not going to coach. I'm not going to stay in football. I want to be an announcer.
I think I just fell into it, Kenny. Honestly, I really did. I really, my time as a player and then coming back to the city, it was ESPN 1000. It was Carmen DeFalco and Sylvie. They both were big in having me on their shows and talking about what was going on in sports and my life. And I got addicted to radio. I loved radio. I loved that feeling of being on the radio. And so, through the years of being interviewed all the time, I started to get a feeling of like, yo, I'm good at having conversations with people. And so
Mm-hmm.
interviewing really it just I don't know, it came to me, and I was like, yo, this could be my thing. And then I started Illinois Center for Broadcasting, and I was doing an online show, and
Mm-hmm.
I just fell in love there. And then once that experience ended, it was had a chance to go to ESPN and do the Sports Nation College Football Show for a season, and then it was like, whoa, this is TV. This is I like this. I kind of like it. And to be able to give your perspective, and this, you're
Right.
every single day you're getting a chance to write a new chapter in what's
Mm-hmm.
going on in sports. And the people at home that are watching, they're getting that information from you. And if you can be a storyteller and you tell the story that how you see it, and people enjoy that, man, it's like playing a game. It's like being in an NFL game. It's like playing a college game. I get that same rush. And so I was just really, really blessed to have the people at WGN, at radio first, and then also at TV to have, to believe in me and say, like, this is something you could do. And I didn't go to school for any of this stuff, so I've had to learn on the fly. But guys like Dan Roan and Rich King, who I grew up watching, to be able to sit in that same seat and be an African American male, to be able to do that at WGN and to have the spot that I have now, I don't take it for granted. And I'm going to keep doing it and keep opening up doors for people like myself that want to come into this business, and hopefully give them an opportunity and to flourish and to grow so they can have the opportunity after me. And it's cool to be able to set the tone. But I know that there's going to be people coming after me, and I want to be able to give them that opportunity. So that's why I keep working hard, man. I'm going to keep working hard, but I love this business. It's cool. And it gives me an opportunity to have a voice.
And you do a great job. Hey, I know I've kept you longer than I said I would, but before we go, you have to tell everybody about your foundation. You're doing a wonderful job. Tell me about the foundation.
Yeah, our foundation, my wife and I, we started before kids, and I really wanted to do something that was near and dear to my heart, and we decided to start the Jarrett Payton Foundation. And our first initiative was an anti-bullying campaign called Project No Bull, and it's carried on for double-digit years now, man. And we have over the time, I think I've spoken close to like over 80,000 kids and in the Chicagoland area. So it gives me an opportunity to be able to tell my story of what I went through growing up, and hopefully also not only just impact the youth, but also create leaders and the new leaders that are coming up in our communities, and to be a better, son or daughter, to be a better brother or sister, better in your community. And we started to really see over time that people have really taken on to it, and it gives us an opportunity to do something. My wife and I say, this is what we do for, it's our debt to society. It's what we're doing. And both of us don't get paid. We both have our own jobs and our own careers, but it's something that, it's something my dad and my mom taught me. And I'm just very, very thankful and grateful that they really showed me what it means to give back, and how they, ran our family's foundation. So it's given me an opportunity to do that. So if anybody wants to see what we're doing, just go to jarrettpayton.org. You can find out some of the things, how you can get involved. And Kenny, things are changing now with this pandemic, and we're not able to have the events that we used to do and all that stuff. But people have been very generous in donating and helping us kind of figure out a way to be able to take, the foundation into the future. And so to know, honestly, that is where I saw what my life is and what I'm doing, and I'm truly a success, is through my foundation. Because the fact that people believe in you that much, that they're willing to give you their hard-earned dollars to be able to do the things that we're doing for these kids, and they trust me, that right there, that's all that's what I don't need. Anything else. No money, no big contract in this business is ever going to be able to outshadow and overshadow what I'm doing with my foundation. And so it's near dear to my heart, and I just want to keep impacting kids and really leaving my imprint, because that's going to be my legacy, man. It's a part of my legacy.
Well, Jarrett, I tell you, you are such a wonderful young man. I know your parents are extremely proud of you. You do a wonderful job with the foundation. You do a great job on television. I'm looking forward to your national football show, previewing the Super Bowl that you just finished up. And I really want to thank you for taking time out being with me today. I know you're extremely busy. You had to juggle a few things, but I can't thank you enough for taking time out being with me today.
Man, you're the best, Kenny. Anything for you, man. I appreciate you so much. So thank you for having me on.
All right, Jarrett. Hey, good luck with the foundation. Thanks so much.
No problem.